Shabbat Shalom, everyone. Earlier this week, we saw the assassination of Charlie Kirk, one of the more prominent political figures in our country. Like so many people who gain notoriety in our society, Charlie Kirk is a polarizing figure. Very few people were neutral about his views. They either loved them or they couldn't stand them. But no matter how you felt about him, it is imperative that we as Jews unequivocally condemn his murder. At this point, the shooter is unknown, but it doesn't matter who the shooter was or what his or her motives may be. We cannot in any way suggest that there were good reasons to hurt or harm someone with whom we disagree, let alone snuff out their life with a gun, or any weapon for that matter. And yet, this kind of gruesome murder is all too familiar. In the past few months and years, there have been politically motivated murders of so many people. Both the victims and the perpetrators have run the full gamut of the political spectrum. Charlie Kirk is easily the most well-known victim, but he is far from the only one. There is blood on everyone's hands here, no matter what party they represent. Our Torah portion this week, Ki Tavo, gives us an implicit warning about what happens when our society gets to this point, when we feel like it is acceptable to kill another person because we find them and or their views dangerous. The bulk of this week's portion deals with blessings and curses. If, the Torah tells us, we obey God and faithfully observe the commandments that God gives us, then we will receive some of the most beautiful and profound blessings. However, if we fail to obey God or faithfully observe the commandments, we will incur some of the most wicked and evil curses we could imagine. Obviously, at a literal level, the Torah's view is too simplistic. We only wish the world was so straightforward that those who are faithful would receive good blessings and those who were disobedient would receive curses. But I don't think the Torah is trying to be literal here. Its message is more subtle and way more powerful. Before any of the Torah commandments are given, there are a series of what I sometimes call pre-commandments or meta-commandments, rules and regulations that are foundational and undergird all the other laws that come later. And perhaps the meta-commandment comes at the moment that human beings are created. It's that famous line that says, Vayivra Elohim et ha'adam b'tzalmo, b'tzelem Elohim bara otam. God created humankind, every human being, in the divine image, creating it in the image of God. If we can't adhere to this simple commandment, to treat every human being as though they were made in the divine image, then it doesn't much matter if we follow any or all of the other commandments. We will undoubtedly be headed down the road of the curses. And if you look down all the way through the 53 verses of curses in this week's portion, you get to the one the Torah thinks is the worst of all, that God will send us back to Egypt, something I promised would never happen. That's right. We all lose our rights and our privileges of being human beings, and we have to go back to the land where we were slaves. And if that isn't bad enough, the Torah tells us that we will offer to sell ourselves as slaves, but we will be seen as so worthless that no one will want to buy us. I will always tell my students that treating others like they are made in the image of God sounds like one of the easiest commandments to follow, but it's actually one of the toughest ones to obey. We human beings aren't so good at remembering that those who are different than us are also made in God's image. When people talk about the other as being less human, it becomes that much easier to kill one of those others. That's what happened to Charlie Kirk, to Melissa Horton, and countless others who were simply fortunate enough to survive the attempts on their lives. My prayer for us on this Shabbat is that we all learn the basic lesson of this week's Parsha. We can disagree with people, even vehemently and passionately so. But even those who oppose us most fiercely are just as much God's creatures as we are. We are all made in the divine image. Let's hope that we can keep that idea in mind before it's too late. Shabbat Shalom.